So, what's up?
Hey, how are
Hey,
you?
I'm great.
Hi.
I'm great. I'm great.
Good.
Yeah. So,
Good.
I was sleeping up until 12:23,
Nice.
like 15 minutes ago, because we went for a run in the wilderness last night.
A night
And
run.
a night run. A night run. I thought it was going to be fun, and it turned out to be punishing and
Ooh.
fun. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
enduring. It was enduring. So we ran
What was
19
the
miles.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Why?
exactly.
Why? From
That's how I
something?
felt during it.
Something chasing you in the
from
wilderness?
from the former version of myself, maybe, I guess.
Oh, wow. That's too
Growing, trying to grow. But I thought it was going to be fun. It turned out to be fun and deeply challenging, because we didn't bring enough food or water. So we
Oh
went
my
up and
God.
down 5,000 feet over 19 miles, and it took 7 hours.
Oh my God.
I know. I know.
Wow, that sounds like incredible from like an athletic standpoint. How's your body feel?
Very sore, very sore, but
Yeah.
pretty good.
In a
Pretty
good
good. I
way?
didn't injure myself. Yeah, I didn't injure myself, so that was nice. But it was the latest I've stayed up since I was thinking about this. It's the latest I stayed up since I stayed up all night meditating and chanting.
Wow.
That
What
was the
time did you go
last
to
time.
bed?
Oh, 2 a.m. 2 a.m. So we got to
Wow.
see the like nightlife of Durango on the streets. So like 10 people leaving bars, going and eating, stumbling away from bars.
Wow.
So yeah. So,
That's
but I did have
awesome.
some lessons of gratitude. I know we're going to talk about gratitude today. So I had some things from gratitude, but I wanted to hear how you are first and what's up.
Wow. Oh man, you're so
Yeah.
prepared. I'm good. I also stayed up last weekend. So I was in LA. I went to LA for a day. So 2 nights,
Yeah.
one day for
Yeah.
a meeting. And my dance teacher happened to be in town.
Oh,
Did I tell you that?
nice. No.
Yusuf. So my dance teacher, who I've gone to
Yeah.
Guinea with many, many, many times, who I adore, who I haven't danced with in years because of COVID now. He
Yeah.
happened to be teaching in Los Angeles, 3 classes, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the way that my flight turned
Wow.
out, I was able to go to 2,
Oh
which
my
was
gosh.
amazing. And then
Oh,
after the Saturday class, I ended up hanging out with him and then the person he was staying with and a friend of mine. And I stayed up that night until 2 a.m. 2 a.m. LA time, which was 5 a.m. New York time, because I had just
wow.
arrived that same day from New York. So I
Yes.
was also very impressed. It was like embodying my 22-year-old self, where I was like, wow, I broke night. I'm staying up till 5 a.m. basically.
Did you utilize your superpower the next morning? One of your superpowers?
My superpower being able to sleep for 12 hours straight.
You can sleep as long as a teenage boy.
Oh, I
Oh.
totally can. Longer. I'm a champion. No, sadly, I wasn't able to because of, life and things. But yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. That's cool.
So
Good.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and things are good.
Good.
Things are good. Yeah.
Should we talk about gratitude?
Yeah. Is that what we're gonna do? Sure. Let's talk about
I don't know that
gratitude.
was our topic. I
I
made some
know,
notes.
yeah. Oh my God, you're so good. I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna
Okay,
wing it. I
sweet.
figured that was
Sweet.
just gonna work. That would work perfectly fine.
Here's my favorite note from my notes, which happens to me a lot, where I write something down and I'm like, this is amazing. And then I look at it. And so this will describe my process, right? My favorite note: gratitude as honey. That's it.
Ooh. Wow. But that's
Yeah, but
deep.
I don't have any. Well, I mean, it could mean many things. I think it means that when you add gratitude to something, it makes everything better, which is how I relate to honey.
Mm,
You can take
yeah.
I just eat honey sometimes, which apparently I've been told is medicine, but it just tastes amazing. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was kind of funny.
I like
Um,
it.
I have a story too, an interesting story about gratitude that could kind of
Tell
kick us
me.
off. All right.
Yeah.
So, like all stories, I'm not sure if it's actually true or not, but I remember hearing it, and you know how excellent my memory is. It's
Is your
not very
memory
good at all.
no?
No, it's terrible.
I also like
No,
how you said like all stories. I'm not sure if it's true. I'm like, are all? Is that a thing about all
I
stories?
I thought that was a rule of storytelling that you could actually like make it up.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that not? Okay. Well, clearly that's how I relate to telling stories. So, anyway, I think I heard this story. I may have just made it up. And I tried Googling it and I couldn't find any information about it. So, anyway, here's the story. The story goes like this. The Dalai Lama is offering darshan, like he's offering blessings, and people are coming up and meeting him and everything. And there is this man who is clearly very perturbed, and people are kind of like, watching him as he goes up there, and you can tell he's pretty upset about something just by his, I don't know, vibe, I guess. And he goes to the Dalai Lama and he spits in the Dalai Lama's face.
What?
Yeah, I know. And so everyone like rushes in and like, I don't know if they took this is where the story quite honestly becomes a little sketchy. I'm not sure what happens. I just remember the lesson of the story, so I'm just going to add some color to the story. Okay, so then the people rush in. This is now the fictional part of the story, I think. So people like the security rushes in and they take him away. And the Dalai Lama says, "Stop!" I don't know if the Dalai Lama actually yells.
I think he would. Fun fact, I've actually met the Dalai Lama, and he's not as like peaceful and like contemplative all the time as you would think. He's actually very kind of like what's the word? Dirty.
Careful.
He's got a lot of like energy, like in a way that you're surprised by. Yeah, so I can see him
cool. Okay.
yelling.
All right. Well, that's not surprising, but I've never seen him. Anyway, he yelled and he said, "Stop!" And I'll have to tell you when the fictional part of the story stops. So he says, "Stop." And everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, what's he doing? And he says, "I want to express," this is still the fictional part of the story.
You're ruining the story by saying that so many times. Just tell the story.
I tried to be honest. He says, "Stop. I want to express my gratitude to this man." And everyone's stunned. And then he says, "I want to express my gratitude to you for showing me that I still have anger inside of myself." And then he bowed to the man. Wow. And then the man went to jail.
Wow.
I don't know what happened to the man. But the point of the story is that the Dalai Lama expressed his gratitude to this man for showing him that he still had anger inside. Or else, at least I think in the Dalai Lama's viewpoint, I'm not exactly sure, but I think in his viewpoint, the man would not have been able maybe to do something so egregious, to the Dalai Lama, if the Dalai Lama didn't have some kind of resonance inside. I think it's the teaching.
Interesting. That's your takeaway from the story.
That was my takeaway. Yeah.
It's like a law of attraction thing.
Yeah. Resonance, attraction, something like that.
Oh, interesting. I heard it differently. That's yours? An amazing story. That's kind of like the one about Gandhi and the sugar. Do you know that one? Mm-mm. Oh, well, tell that.
Too many guru type stories. Only one guru story.
For time. What I heard in what you were in the story when you just shared that was that the guy spitting in his face, in the Dalai Lama's face, brought up the anger inside of him. And so he was like, "Oh, wow, there's something for me to look at in myself, which is anger. So thank you for showing me that there was anger in me."
That's good too. That's like a micro spin of it's very similar.
Similar, but
same county.
Different. Yeah. Exactly. Different zip code, same county. Yeah. So
I really like that story because it helped me bring meaning to a very a story that a personal story that I have, which is it was shocking for me for this to have happened to me. So I'm driving down my quaint little hamlet of a town, 15,000 people, Durango, downtown, big tourist attraction. So downtown, congested traffic, not like anywhere else, but like congested for us and making me impatient. So I'm driving through downtown I'm kind of crawling through downtown, you know, being kind of respectful of my car. And I'm like watching pedestrians cross the road. So I was like intentionally being really good about like watching for people, which quite honestly, I don't always do. And I was watching people cross the road and I was like crawling across and like stopped at a point. And then a man pushing his bike yells at me, "Hey, look where you're going." And like kind of like right in my almost my face. If my face could have been out, like my window was up, but I was still, and the windows are shaded a little, so but I could, the impact is what's important. And he said that, and I impulsively, which I don't think I've ever done in my life, I said something like, "I'm doing the best I can," you know, or something. Like I yelled back at him, like with the same kind of intensity, because I was very angry because I was trying so hard. And this might be a common occurrence for people in the world, but it's not for me. And I was very angry. I really wanted him to know that I was trying hard. I said just like, "Oh no, that's not what I said. I completely made that up. This is what I said. I said, chill them out." I said, chill them out, you know? So
Yeah.
anyway, the point of me telling this story is that I immediately became this is what happened in the like minute that transpired afterwards. First of all, I was very righteous and upset and felt very good about yelling back at him because I was very angry and the guy was totally out of line. Like he was walking and just had to pause his bike like as my car was like coming out. And then I felt really guilty about it because I was like, what if someone saw me doing that? And like, you know, I'm a nice person in the community and, you know, I'm a monk, you know, so people know that. And if they'd be like, whoa, what's wrong with that guy? You know, he's supposed to be a nice guy. And then the last thing, I was grateful. I was like, you know what? This is going to help me learn something. And I'm not exactly what it helped me learn other than.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you learn? It's going to help you learn something. You haven't learned it yet.
Exactly. And I was grateful for the future occurrence of learning something, of being educated about myself.
Got it.
Which maybe that'll happen today or now, or maybe not.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, what do you think? Wow, that's really interesting. So you were grateful about a future state of anticipated learning about yourself without actually the learning taking place.
But I wasn't
knew it was inevitable.
But I wasn't humble enough to actually like. I'm realizing right now I was still angry, and I was like, "That guy's a d-bag," you know, kind of a thing. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't humble enough to. I'm not sure. I mean, there's obviously something there about like me learning about like how I'm reactive and the role of righteousness in my life. Like, there's a lot of stuff there, I think. But anyway,
Can
it was
I
a humbling moment.
Something?
Yeah, please.
Well, I think it's really interesting that, when you told the story initially, and that you said what you yelled back was that I'm doing the best I can. And I was like, wow, that's such a vulnerable thing to share.
I think I would have liked to have yelled that. I think is what I realized.
Well, but I was going to say, so maybe that's the lesson is for you to have compassion for yourself in those moments because you are doing the best that you can, and to have gratitude for yourself for doing the best that you can. And for the man giving you the opportunity to see that in yourself.
He did. Namaste, Durango man. Namaste.
Namaste, douchebag with the bike. Appreciate it too.
There we go. That's right. That's good. That's really sweet. I was just thinking like, and this is something I do sometimes, is I don't really have compassion for myself because I feel like I should be doing better. Like sometimes I have this judgment around compassion for myself that I should be behaving better, right? Instead of wasting, man, this is kind of interesting, like wasting time being like giving myself a break. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have done that. That's sort of where I go to in like my Wisconsin shame brain, you know, growing up in Wisconsin. It's just like, don't do bad things, period. Right. So sometimes I have this judgment around like being compassionate or kind to myself, I realize.
Wow,
You know?
interesting.
Yeah. This podcast is turning into a therapy session for myself a little bit. Thanks.
I'll send a Venmo request for
That's
$210 afterwards. That's my rate. This is my first time offering a therapy session, but I feel like I should start
start
strong
high.
out the
Start
gate.
high.
Yeah.
Exactly. Establish your
Yeah.
credibility.
Yeah,
So,
that's interesting. What you're saying is that you sometimes, instead of feeling compassion for yourself in those moments when you do something that's not in alignment, you or is it okay? What's the landscape of it? So you do something that's not in alignment, and then maybe you'll feel compassion for yourself, and then your brain says, hey, no, that's a waste of time. Stop feeling compassion for yourself. You should just not be doing that in the first place.
no,
Or do
I
you
think I
not even
never.
feel compassion for yourself?
I don't think ever. This is kind of an interesting thing about me. I don't think I've ever felt kind to myself after I've made a mistake. I don't think ever. I don't even know if I'm capable. No, that's not true. Of course I'm capable, but I haven't done it ever. I don't think I've ever had a moment where I've been like, "Oh, that's okay. It's okay." No, is that true? Let me think about this. No, never in the moment. Usually some period of time passes and I'm like, ooh, okay, that was a mistake. It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. It was a mistake. But never. The reaction is definitely to blame myself, for things.
Yeah.
For initial instinct,
I feel like that's natural. Don't you? I mean, I don't know. I'm not inside of everybody's
But what
brain,
is
but I think
yours?
that's very natural.
What's your
Yeah.
thing? I mean, that's a daily occurrence for you, is yelling at somebody. I mean, you live in New York. I mean, that's what
I
you
don't
people
yell at
do.
people every day. No,
But
I
you're in New York,
barely
not
ever yell.
you. Do you? Okay.
That's
I
a
thought it was
total
just like
biased
part
thing
of
to say
the.
about New Yorkers. That's like a cartoon version of us. No, people don't yell at each other here.
New Yorkers are so nice. Yeah, every time I visit you, I'm shocked. There's something, because I've been taught in my Wisconsin brain to like be on guard and get ready to get mugged every time I go to New York. But every time I go there, people are the nicest. Almost the nicest people I think I've ever met. Like every time, maybe it's just like hanging out with you, but there are people who are like, oh, she is so nice and she's so beautiful. And then they're like super nice. But that could be one reason. But I think they're so nice. They like every time, like we were standing in line for the train. I remember one time, and people just started a conversation with us. They were like, "Oh, where are you going?" I was like, "It's a city of 8 million people," and like they're having a conversation. They're so nice.
It's true.
So
Yes,
I'm dissolving my own
agree.
concept about New York.
Good. Thank you. It's about time.
Yeah,
And for everyone
thank
out
you.
there, please also dissolve your concepts about New York being you're going to get mugged or people. I remember I traveled to Europe and they're like, "Do you have a gun?" And I was like, "No." Although I guess a lot of Americans have guns, so it's not a crazy question. But I think it was more like New York specific. There's some like a lot of like 80s movies were like made about New York. I don't know, people getting mugged, foreigners getting mugged, or tourists getting mugged in New York, and so it's just kind of stayed.
You know what my favorite 80s New York movie is?
What?
Can you take a guess? Can you think of it? Yeah.
Can I think of your favorite 80s New York movie? Well,
It's a rom-com. Let's narrow it in. It's a rom-com.
When Harry Met Sally.
Oh my God, that's so good. That should
Is that
be
right?
it, but it's not. No,
Oh,
but
oh,
that
okay.
should
Another
be it.
rom-com.
It is right now, though.
80s.
So before just now, my favorite.
Who's in it?
The first one I thought of. Tom Hanks.
Oh, You Got Mail? No, I don't. Is
It's Seattle.
No,
It
that's
is
Sleepless
80s,
in
and it's
Seattle. Sleepless in
Oh,
Seattle.
wait. I feel like those are the same movie.
There's
Those are
like
not.
they're basically the same movie. Tom Hanks. Rom-com.
It's so good.
Meg Ryan? Who's it?
No.
What's the movie?
Daryl Hannah, Tom
Splash.
Hanks. Splash.
I wouldn't call Splash as a rom-com. Maybe.
Isn't it?
Is
They
it?
falls in love with a
They do
mermaid.
fall in love. I know, it's true. It's
Daryl
true.
Hannah at her best.
Yeah,
It's a
really.
great Daryl
I
Hannah
haven't seen that
movie.
in so long.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, how do we get back from this? Now we're down a rabbit hole of Daryl Hannah 80s movies.
Is there another Daryl Hannah movie that stands out to you as a great Daryl Hannah movie?
No, I can't think of anything else Daryl Hannah's been in other than Splash and Splash 2.
Me neither. Oh, there was Splash 2?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm
Can you
pretty
give
sure.
us just? We'll go back, but now I really want to know what happens in Splash 2. Can you do a reveal? You don't
I
remember?
don't remember.
Does she go
I'm
back
pretty
to the
sure.
ocean with Tom Hanks?
Oh man, I think I
A
saw it in the 80s. Let me see. Is that
la
Splash
Shape of
2?
Water.
Yeah. Splash 2.
What
TOO
if?
is how it's spelled.
Oh, nice. Hey, do you think? Hey, did Benicio? Who made The Beauty of Water or The Shape of Water?
Oh, Benicio del Toro. No, it's Benicio del Toro is the actor. It's
The actor.
Guillermo
That's another
del Toro,
Guillermo del.
right? Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, are they related?
I don't think so.
No, it's just a racist thing that I just said because they have the same last name. Oh God.
Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, that's who it is.
Okay. Do you think he was inspired by Splash 2 to make The Shape of Water?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Splash
Like
2
what?
inspired so many iconic filmmakers and iconic films of the last century or just several decades. It inspired movies before it was even made. In the 1950s, they knew it was coming. Oh my God.
All right. We were talking about gratitude and
Yeah.
how gratitude is like honey, I think.
Yeah, and
last
you were
part.
and also we were talking about mistakes.
Oh, New York. We were talking about New York and the New York vibe. How people are super
Yelling at
nice and
people. You said
judging.
something
And,
about yelling. I said people. You said something about yelling.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I was saying like the instinct I have is to feel bad first. And I thought that people from New York, before I verbalized it, I thought people from New York didn't have like their way of expressing how they felt bad was to yell at people.
Right.
Which is a
stereotype.
Yeah. Dissolving.
Awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So I think like you were saying that basically when you make a mistake that before you have compassion for yourself or forgive yourself, you kind of go into feeling bad and beating yourself up.
Always. Every time.
Yeah, but I do too. I feel like isn't that just human nature? Do you think there's people who don't? If I were to make a mistake and then not or hurt somebody, it's interesting because actually recently I was asked like, what's the biggest mistake you've made in your career? And it's hard for me to retrieve that. And I actually started thinking maybe I should think of more things in my life as mistakes so that I can have answers when I do those kinds of interviews. But I was like, I don't really look at things like as mistakes. I don't have that framework for looking at them. I think things can go wrong and I can do things that I shouldn't, or I can see how I could have done something differently or how I hurt someone unintentionally and I didn't mean to. I don't really think I use the mistake framework in my life. And maybe I should. Maybe it will give me greater access to something. But I think that like if you were to say, I think in general, when we make mistakes or do something that has an unintended result, that we feel bad about it. Like if we don't, aren't we some sort of like sociopath or something? I think it's very natural to beat ourselves up when we do something that we didn't mean to do or that,
and just the way that we express it, I think varies amongst people, right? But I think you're right. I think you're right that the natural inclination is towards like, ooh, feeling bad or like shame, right? And then like how we express it varies among people and cultures and things, I suspect. The East Indian culture doesn't really seem to relate to like, they don't care. Like they are the people that I think in the world that I've met the most that just glide through life in a way, like they don't say this again, my experience, like the East Indian folks, like they don't say thank you and they don't say sorry either. I'm realizing, and I asked some of our friends and some of our community over there around why they don't say thank you. And one of our friends from the Kumbh Mela years ago, he's like, well, don't say, I don't, if you want to say thank you to me, give me a piece of chocolate. That was his thing to me. He was like, give me a piece of chocolate if you're happy or something, and there's just like no need for it. They just sort of glide through their lives, it seems like, in that culture, in like the beautiful way that I really admire.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's like a kind of an outside perspective, because I'm sure for people they have challenges. I don't think that human beings think necessarily that they glide through their lives from the inside. But I would agree from the outside, my perception of that, having spent time there, and it's interesting, like to travel around the world or to visit different cultures. And I think it always shows me what's American about me, because it's hard for me to see that when I'm in America. Yes, and then when I leave America, then I can see all those things that are like the frustration that comes up, or like entitlement, or things around time, or being told something that's going to actually happen. And I think what I noticed in India is that also there's a different kind of sense of self. And like in America, that I have a sense that I own the space directly around me. So I own my physical body. That's mine. And also, like, let's say 3 feet in every direction, or 2 feet, that's also my space. So if you're talking to me and you're too close, that gets us upset, right? It's like, whoa,
it feels like a violation. You're on my property, right?
You're in my, exactly. You're in my personal space. And I think like, I noticed I was at the Mandir in Puttaparthi at Sai Baba's ashram, where there's thousands of people gathered, and I was in the women's section, and I'm seated on the floor, on this marble floor, cross-legged, and there's women packed in everywhere, and this one older woman just kind of sat on top of my leg. And I was like,
and Mandir's like a temple. Mandir's like a temple or ashram, right? Or monastery.
And so I was like, what the hell? Get off me, lady. And I was just like, but there was I could see all of those things coming up in me, like my entitlement, like my frustration, all of those kinds of things coming up. And I could see that like people were just sitting all over each other there, and it didn't matter. And I actually also saw one time we were in a vehicle traveling somewhere, and it was like the organized chaos of Indian traffic circles, where everyone seems to, they use horns as like sonar, and like everyone's just driving all around, but it's all working somehow. And
it works so well.
It does. But in this one moment, it was the first time I ever saw it, that a car hit a man that was walking across the street. It was a rickshaw. So a rickshaw hit a man that was walking across the street, tapped him lightly, but enough to make him crumple to the ground, the pedestrian. And the guy who got hit by the rickshaw just crumpled to the ground, and then he stood back up, he dusted himself off, and then he kept walking straight ahead. And he didn't even say anything to the rickshaw driver.
Whoa.
And I was shocked, because again, not to perpetuate a stereotype about New York, but if somebody were to get hit by a taxi like that in New York, you best believe that there would be so much righteous indignation. And when I saw that happen in India, I thought, wow, it's almost like I don't know what he was thinking, but the sense I got in the moment, it's like he doesn't own that space around him, or even like his body in the same way. It's like he got bumped, then he got back up, and he just kept going. It's a different sense of personal space.
What do you think was going on inside of him? Like he was like, ooh, I shouldn't have walked there, or was he like, ooh, that rickshaw driver sucks? Or
no, I got the sense that none of those things. Yeah, what you were talking about that like floating. I think that lack of like that, the ego self. I think also like that idea that there's such an idea here in the States that like we're separate. And I think that, at least in my experience of going to other places where they're much more community focused or family focused, there's a sense that they're like, it's all interrelated. Like if I'm eating, you're eating. Like in Guinea, like everyone eats from one plate. There's no, like, people don't get separate plates to eat from. It's totally bizarre. They have one big plate, and everyone gathers around, eats from the same plate. And then you just eat until there's no food left. It's not like I get my share.
Wow.
And so I felt when that happened in India, it was similar. It was like he got bumped by the rickshaw. He was okay. He got up. He kept going. There was no ego charge for him to get triggered by.
I just had this image of sharing a plate of food with anybody, and how much would happen inside of me with that. I think it could be delightful to start with a loved one like you, but pretty soon there would be some kind of like, ooh, I wanted that bite, That was the bite
Yeah.
I wanted, you know? And
Right.
then
But
I would, then
that goes
yeah,
away when
it
you
goes away.
in a different setting. But you are
Yeah.
also very, I mean, I've eaten it near and around and with you for many years, and you
That's
can
true.
eat a lot.
Yeah. There's a scarcity consciousness that comes up around food for me sometimes because I don't
Really?
like feeling hungry. Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway,
Mm.
yeah, thank you for that. That was great. It's so true. It's so true about like our culture and us and thus like myself around the space thing. There was a funny story I remembered when I was in India one time and my luggage had gotten lost and I was quote unquote waiting in line. We would call that in the West or in the United States waiting in line. There was no line at first, and I was giving an American's length of space to the to the desk, and I was sitting there, and it turned into this standoff where a gentleman came up, and he was clearly like wanted to make file a claim or something, and I was probably about 3 feet away from the counter, you know, where we would get our conflicts resolved, and you could tell he was like very, well, what would you say, anxious maybe, or like he had really, he could not, he was very uncomfortable, let's say that, with the amount of space that I had in front of and I was like tired and thus kind of irritable and was like, it was, you know, it's hot and it's muggy inside. And anyway, all of those like American type like problems that I had with traveling. And I was like standing there and I was like waiting and I was like, oh man, you know. And then he's like looking at me and looking at the desk, looking at me, looking at the desk, looking at me, looking at the desk. And I was like, I know what he's trying to get me to do. I just didn't want to do it, you know? And he even motioned, he was just like, please, 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 please. He really, it was like this, it seemed like this battle inside where he either he really wanted me to take up the space or he was going to fill it, you know? And he was just,
Yeah.
he was very polite about it. And it was like, please, please. And finally I was like, I don't want to move closer. And then I did. And then he like gently like stepped in back of me. But it's that piece around space, you know? It's
Yeah.
like similar to you, I was like, this is my space. I'm demonstrating that I am next in line, and please, sir, respect my space and take a stand behind me. But he was unwilling, maybe even incapable of standing behind me because of the, you know, relationship to space. And I think too that knowing just like especially Indian airports, like people were just going to rush in and take all of that space if I didn't take it. So I think he was really looking out for me, which I appreciated.
Gratitude. Hashtag gratitude.
Full circle. Oh, I have two other things to say about gratitude.
Okay.
One is I had the visceral experience of gratitude last night around hour 4. It had become very dark, and our goal of being back to the car by hour 4 was rapidly dissolving. Well, had rapidly dissolved. Like the sun was setting, it was getting dark, and we were miles and probably 3,000 feet of elevation gain, like away from the car. And I had also realized that I had clearly not brought it. I brought 18 ounces of water, which that's a glass and a half of water for 19 miles, which it was just a foolish mistake. And I thought I'd be fine. And I was just like the sun, as the sun was setting, I was realizing that my choices, the hope that my choices were the right choices was also setting at the same time. And I was hungry and tired, and Greg had like ran ahead of me because he's much faster and more fit than I am. And he was totally fine. But I was like alone in the woods at dark and tired and sleepy. And I just wanted to go to sleep. Anyway, I was thinking about talking to you today about gratitude. And I was just like, okay, well, let's see if I can just be grateful. And so it became this mantra like that. I was like, as I was moving and walking, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And then I like heard like, I think a bear and like it was around. I just was like grateful to the bear. And I just started being like gratitude, and it helped a lot. It really did. Like I kind of softened, and I would notice my tendency to want to like beat myself up or complain about Greg wanting to do this, but then I had agreed to it happily because he really wanted to do it and I wanted to like help him with it. And all of these like different ways that I could have I don't know, suffered or made the situation worse or increased the suffering, but I just started being grateful. And it really worked. It really worked. It didn't like take away the pain or the exhaustion or like my soggy feet, but it made it all better. It really did. And then when I saw Greg, I was like, how are you? He's like, I'm happy. I was like, you are? I was like, this is brutal. He's like, of course it's brutal, but isn't it great? And I was like, oh, I guess that's true. So it was just like a good exercise in gratitude. It was a double entendre of exercise, if you will.
Right. Exercise on all levels.
Exercise. Yeah.
Wow.
That
I
was
mean,
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
not surprising, and it's so simple.
Right.
But I
Simple.
wonder, because sometimes what I struggle with when it comes to gratitude is like that part in between, that part around like be grateful. So when you said like you
Yeah.
just started being grateful, like how did you do that? Did you just
I
think like,
know.
where was that? How did that connection
Well,
happen
this
that
is
then got you
interesting.
into your heart?
This is interesting because I was thinking as I was pondering, I had lots of time to think clearly, and I was pondering about gratitude. And I think there's like first order, second order, maybe even like third order gratitude, like a very easy, and I think for me, unuseful way of using gratitude is grateful that like things aren't worse. But it like gets you in the door. It gets you in like the club of gratitude, right? Of like, well, this could be worse. And that's how I did start. I was like, well, it could be raining like it was at the beginning, and I could be soaked, or my headlamp could stop working, or I could hurt myself. Like all these things kind of went through my head, but I didn't actually really feel grateful for bad things not happening. Like I wasn't able to like get into the juice of it. It just felt like sort of almost like an excuse in a way. Like it just felt unhelpful. But I was like, okay, well, that was cool. I was just noticing inside of myself. Did my heart like expand? Did I feel better about the situation because bad things weren't happening? Not really. It didn't really help.
Mm.
And then I started feeling grateful for like the things that I have, like the things that were happening. And I think this is how the power of perspective comes in, is that I started being grateful for looking at things exactly as they were, right? That I was like in this beautiful part of the world in the middle of the mountains of Colorado. No one was around. I could hear like the rushing of a river and crickets, and then had this like experience with what I think was a bear from a distance. That was really cool. Like I love Greg, and he's like one of my best friends. And I was like having that experience with him, even though he was like far away, but I felt good about like supporting him, having that experience with him. Like all these different things that my body, I was like, oh my God, like if I twisted my ankle or like fell down this ravine into the creek, which a side note, like I kind of wanted to do. we were walking on this trail and it was like hour 5, and I was completely exhausted and just like, oh, this sucks. And I looked at this ravine that I think was like a couple 100 feet down into a river. And I was like, if I passed out and fell into the ravine, that wouldn't be so bad. It was like one of those moments. That's relatable, huh?
Definitely.
So
I mean, I'm not really in around many ravines in my life, but I have similar kind of feelings sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just started feeling grateful for what was, which is that like my body was functioning really well, and I was fit, and I had the access to teachings in my life that I could change my experience. So I started becoming grateful for how things were. And that was really helpful. That like there was some juice in that. And then I realized maybe through the point of exhaustion, because I couldn't like think, like it was hard to think of stuff like that. Like it took some kind of energy that I had lost the ability to actualize. But I started just being grateful, like for no reason,
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, and it wasn't even a thought. Like it wasn't even, I'm grateful. I was just like, and the most I could kind of muster was like gratitude, and just like breathing. So that was really awesome. I feel like I actually moved into the state of it a bit more, as opposed to ideas about it or concepts about it, which I thought was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting because it's like, what is that access? Because it's like, it's the ideal place is to be in that state of gratitude where it's not about being grateful for, it is just simply being
Right.
grateful. And I find that it's hard for me to move into that. Sometimes I can just
Yeah.
naturally, and sometimes I can't. And so what I hear you saying in that too is like one possible access would be to be like grateful for what isn't, and then grateful for what is,
Yeah.
and then moving into gratitude.
Oh, that's good.
So
Yeah.
like I'm grateful that for all these that it could be worse and these are the reasons why. I'm grateful for what is right now, and then moving into gratitude. Would you
Yeah,
say
like,
that's accurate?
yeah, like Saima, our teacher talks about gratitude for gratitude's sake, right?
Right.
Just to be grateful. And like you're saying, I don't know that I'm able to do that very well unless I'm like meditating or like really just like being with someone in like a really beautiful moment, in connection with somebody. Um, yeah, but I wonder if that's actually challenging or if it's like anything else that's just a practice. That if we practice it, that we just get into that state even more and more.
I think it is a practice because like I would do that priming exercise in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, which is around because this is something I've thought about a lot. I really want to be somebody. We all have qualities in ourselves that we'd like to increase, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability, gratitude, and I've actually been working a lot, working hard. I've been focusing a lot lately on
Uh,
this on being proud of myself, which I think is
nice.
like kind of the
That's great.
cousin to gratitude. I think
Yeah.
they feel very related to me. That like, and I think both of them are really a framework for looking at life. So I started to do this thing where it was every day. Oh, and I fell off this a little bit. It's a good reminder for me to do it every day to
Mm-hmm.
write down something that I'm proud of myself for during that day
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like there's so many from the outside. People talk to me, they're like, wow, what you're doing in your career, in your life, what you're creating is so amazing. But I don't actually feel anything inside of myself towards it. And that's sad for me because I'm like, well, what's
Mm-hmm.
the point? Why am I
Yeah.
working so hard doing all of this and I don't feel anything? I don't feel
Huh.
like proud or like fulfilled or grateful. Like that's the juice, that's the honey, the nectar of life.
Yeah.
And so how do I increase that? And I think like you're saying, it is a practice and an exercise, and that by doing that every day, then I'm looking at my life through a certain lens of like, okay, well, what could I be proud of
Right.
this day, or
Right.
like even if I don't do that much that day, what's something that I could be proud of? And I noticed that, and this is probably obvious, but I really notice it through this practice, that the things that make me the most proud are when I am serving or have made a difference
Mm.
in somebody's
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, like that. Yeah. And yeah, it's really interesting. And I think like to just practice that inside of myself, like things that I'm proud about. And I think also things to be grateful for.
Well, I feel the same way. This is really interesting, and I wonder if this is a common trait for just humanity. But I don't really naturally feel proud of myself for anything either. And the only way that I feel good about anything that I've done is when I see the positive impact that I've had. Like you're saying, like serving people. It's so easy for me to like see your life, and I've told you this so many times. It's like this is so great. Like when you tell me about like the progress that your business is making and what you're creating, and seeing your passion engaged and the manifestation of everything that you've been creating, like as an idea, and then having it occur in your life is so amazing. But for me too, like even when people give me like positive feedback about like families, especially that I work with, where they're just like, we're so grateful for, what you've done for our son. And they start crying. And I don't appreciate it until I can feel or see the impact that I've had on them. Right. Like it doesn't
Oh, so
actually
not in their
land,
words.
not in their words. I mean, if their words are like, heartfelt and like, that you can tell that it's really like, it really, transformed their life in a way that I can feel, or in a way that I just know, and maybe they're just having a hard time describing in that moment. But there's really something about the service of it. I don't know if I'm capable. Again, I go back to the capability thing. Probably capable, or that I choose to be proud unless I can really see how I've served. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that just that that it's so difficult to feel proud of myself. It's so easy to beat myself up.
Yes.
Woo, child, so easy to beat myself up. Wow, that is so easy. But being proud of myself, that is so hard.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that about? Actually, hold on 1 second, Giovanna, because something smells like it's on fire.
Ooh.
And it smelled like that for a while. And I thought, oh, this smells like India. It's nice. But now I'm like a little worried something's actually on fire.
Okay. In your bedroom?
Oh my God.
What's on fire in your bedroom? I'm going to guess it's incense is burned down, or a candle is burned down to the base.
Yes.
What was it?
Yeah, it's correct.
Really? Wow. I should feel proud of myself right now, but I don't.
Okay, yes. It's exactly what it was. Exactly what you said.
Incense
had burned down to the base, and my whole room was filled with smoke.
Oh.
So
everything's okay though?
That's been going on for a minute actually. But I was like, it's probably fine. And then I was like, I was trying to listen, but then I was like, I live on the 24th floor. And then I was like, should I put my sneakers on in case I need to run down the stairs because the building is on fire? But I'm glad to report the building is not on fire. I was burning incense because I have a plant in my room that has white mold on it. And so I read on the internet that you can remedy that by spraying vinegar. No, by spraying vinegar on it, which I sprayed this whole plant down with vinegar. But then my whole room smelled like hot vinegar. And so then I burned the incense and now it's filled with smoke. So do not take any kind of botany advice from me or otherwise, but I think it's airing out now.
I do also appreciate that your first thought when the building was on fire was, I'll just get my sneakers on.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I'm ready to
keep recording.
This is exactly. I'll get my sneakers on. So if I kick down the door, I'll just be able to run. I'm just gonna also use the bathroom quick. Stand by.
Wait, right now? Okay. This is good. I wasn't sure when we'd have a break to talk about like when we're ending and all that, but this is
or what should we? Is any of this?
Moment. I mean, this is I think what people do when I listen to podcasts. This is what people do: is just talk about stuff. It's very Seinfeldian, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we gotta I feel like it's good to do because like maybe we don't even use the first couple of them at all. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think this is really good. I'm thinking about like the people, because I think the people that like love us, like the Ellen, what's her last name? Ellen, lives in New York. No, are that amazing woman? Ellen Gold, who loves us. The Ellen Golds of the world will really enjoy this, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's entertaining. I think it's cute. I think it's insightful. I think this is our vibe. I think it's good.
Okay.
And we'll find more. I'm like 10% focused on how I'm being heard, maybe 20% focused on how I'm being heard and not 100% present. So I want to be able to work on that.
Yeah, well, that's what I think too. I think that's what I meant like about like doing some of them too, because I think it's
Yeah.
like clay pots, like you just got to do them.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's like a something in here that's useful, or maybe like not, and that we just do it and get used to it and like
Yeah.
find our rhythm. And then that's going to
Right.
like, it's all
Right.
part of it. You can't just come out of the gate and have it be
Yeah.
100%. And I think that there's something like, I don't know, what we should probably do if we are going to use it, some sort of like intro. We just like got right. We start talking.
I was thinking about that, and I think we record that afterwards once we know the name.
Yeah, or when we have, that's true. I think you do the intro or the outro sometimes after you also have the whole thing edited so that it like makes more sense.
Right.
But I think like, yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like, yeah. Well, I have something to maybe share. I think it's good to like go, like what we talked about. I think it was awesome that you came with stories, and that also like that vulnerable side of things. Like on the topic of like gratitude and being proud. I mean, I think that this is like something that I'm struggling with a lot right now in my life. And I would love if you had advice for me as a friend and as a therapist.
Wow.
You know?
Sure. Yeah.
Best wilderness therapist in the universe. I don't want any therapy that will involve me having to go to the wilderness. Maybe you can just give me some here on this podcast.
Of course, sure.
Yeah, I think that like, you know, oh man, like, so I've been aware that I'm not feeling things to the extent that I want to be feeling things. Like in terms of the wonderful things that are happening with my career and my business right now, like things are happening, such huge wins. And I can conceptualize that. I can see that in my mind, but I'm not feeling it in my heart. And even when I share it with people and they're like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you, Becky. I can see tears in their eyes. Like, I don't really even feel anything inside of myself. And that for me is like a big missing. I want that. I want to feel proud of myself. I want to feel like I've worked so hard for everything that's happening now. And then for those of you out there listening who don't know what I'm talking about, I have a production company, and I started with my laptop in my studio apartment 6 years ago and just slowly have built it. And now I have 11 women across the country on staff. I'm opening an office in LA. I signed a contract with a huge streaming network that you probably all subscribe to. And just everything, it's like a dream come true moment. And it's like, I'm not feeling it. Right. And I don't know what I can do differently, or do you have any ideas?
Well, here's my question or like contemplation is that I would say it in some ways it would be a natural expression or a natural experience. Having achieved your goal would be like gratitude for yourself, like excitement, enjoying it. And I know this for myself too, so I'm speaking from my own experience. But that sometimes when I achieve my goal, I don't have the experience like just like you're talking about. And where I go to is, how am I stopping myself from experiencing something very natural that I should be experiencing? So I always go to, how am I like how am I hard on myself? How am I stopping like my heart's expression? Usually for me, the access point, just like I spoke about, when I'm always wanting to do more and have more impact and be better at what I do, what helps pierce that for me is hearing from people how they've been impacted by my work, by what I've done. And then I can open up to like, wow, what a great day this is. Like, this is a great day to celebrate. But it's hard for me to experience it in the same way that you are, unless I can really hear the impact that it's had on people. Right. And that's the only access to it. So I wonder if you like talked to your employees, or I was just talking with a business coach about this yesterday and 2 days ago. And she said, talk to your raving fans and tell them and ask them, what do they love about you? Because I was kind of in the contemplation of like, in the next things that I want to be doing, what direction should I go? And she's like, God, just interview people and ask them like what they love about you. And that was like uncomfortable for me to hear. But she was like, ask them what they love about you. Ask them what they see like your offering to the world is, and they'll be so happy to share it with you. So that could be a way of getting, it doesn't kind of solve the problem per se, but it might get you through it, like piercing it, by talking to people who have had such a positive impact on the success that you've had and the creation of what you've done. Because it's like, when we lead programs together, we get done and we're like, was that helpful at all? And it's not until we hear from people, they're like, oh my God, like that just opened up something completely new for me. Like, I can't believe that was so amazing. And we're like, oh, okay, and then it starts to like enter in. And then sometimes what I found is sometimes I can look back after I've gone through it and look back at what like the obstacle or what the wall was, and look at the nature of the wall. Right. And look at it and be like, oh man, like I just like, sometimes for me, working hard is an expression of beating myself up. Right. It's like do more. And while it might have like a positive result, it doesn't necessarily like help my own growth that aspect of my own growth around being kind to myself. Like we talked about earlier. It becomes like this kind of like, yeah, like almost sadistic is probably too strong of a word, but like, was it masochistic or sadistic? I can't remember. The thing where you beat yourself up.
Masochistic.
It's like a masochistic cycle that I get in, that I'm always trying to achieve this shiny object. And as soon as I have the shiny object, I'm like, oh, screw this. And I could throw it behind my shoulder. I'm like, what's next? Oh, look at that up there, So,
exactly. Yeah.
But I think one thing that you could do is talk to people and ask them about the impact that you've had on their life, like your employees.
It's interesting that you say that, because I did have a one-on-one the other day with somebody who works with me, and she just naturally started espousing all of this complimentary things towards me, how she felt like I inspired her to see that her dreams are actually possible, how she used to be so shy and quiet and really like just beat herself up a lot. And then by working with me, she's come out of her shell and she feels so much more confident, and how her mom has even noticed she's like a different person. And she's telling me all this to my face at a restaurant, and I'm not feeling anything. It was the same thing where I'm just like, I can hear her saying it, and I feel so desperate in some way to let it in and to feel it, and I don't feel anything. And I wonder like if it is about like maybe what my expectation is of what I'm supposed to feel, like that maybe what I'm feeling is actually okay, and that like I have some expectation I'm supposed to feel some sort of big emotional way when someone says that to me and be moved, and I don't feel that. And so I feel like something is wrong. But I also really feel like with what you're saying, like I also feel myself like I'm there listening, but internally in a way pushing it away. So people are like complimenting me or saying that's so great. I can feel myself push it away. Like the relationship that I'm in right now, he's so loving and adores me. And he's constantly telling me things like, you're so beautiful. You're such an incredible woman. And I can feel something inside of myself, like not letting that in, like kind of deflecting it internally. I'm not saying anything on the outside. I'm like, thank you. But internally, I'm deflecting it, subtly deflecting it from actually penetrating into my heart and like giving me the feeling that I feel like I really want.
Yes.
Any advice?
Yeah.
I'll Venmo you $210 if you can solve this problem for me.
Well, I was just in the state of like, oh my God, I love you so much. That's so I think it's a practice. And I think how much time every day do you spend practicing feeling the love, the gratitude from others, from yourself? That would be the question I have. Do you spend any time?
0 time.
Yeah, I think that's why. I think that's it. Is that it's
Like
developed.
to
I mean,
make a
yeah.
to take
To,
time, like a set time where I sit there and I'm like, I'm loved. People love me. I'm doing good things, like that kind of stuff
yes,
internally. I'm
I
grateful.
think, yes, you do
Yeah.
spend 5 to 10 minutes every day without exception, like brushing your teeth, where you allow your heart to feel and be loved, or you allow yourself to be loved and felt cared for. And I will
Mm.
send you a telegram every day telling you that, if that's helpful. But I think it's like, again, for me, it's just our programming, man. Like, I
Mm.
mean, for myself, I mean, I have the same thing. And I think a lot of people do. I think it's so normal, not natural, but I think it's so normal for us to have that. And I think it's coming up for you right now because, how to describe this? I can feel it, but I don't know if I'll be able to describe it well. It's like your success is so big. Oh, I know what it is. That you just haven't clicked in to the next phase of your own evolution yet. And the world, not the world, the life around you as people, as this entity of a business and an organization, in your own ideas of success, it's all happening. And it's all expanded to this degree that you had been envisioning and wanting and desiring and working tirelessly to achieve. And now it's there, but you're not there matching it,
That
you know?
feels very, yes, that feels exactly accurate to me because I can feel like, even I just got a house in LA. I'm renting it, but I got like this gorgeous house and I can see it all in front of me. I can see it all there, but I feel like
Yeah.
I'm still over here. Or like, even
Yeah.
like I was looking at a picture of this house and I would look at a picture and I'm like, this is my bathroom. And I can't even like somehow comprehend, because this bathroom is like, has this like tub that's like could fit like 6 people in it. It's like marble. It has a skylight. And I just like the fact that that's my bathroom, like I
Yeah.
can't even compute. Like I grew up in a
Right.
apartment in Manhattan, you know, like peeling paint fall down on the
Right.
ceiling while you were in the bathtub. And it's just like that there's some like dissonance somehow
Yeah.
between the who I am
Yeah.
and the life that I've created and the
Yes.
career that I've created.
Yes.
It's like the me that's here
Yes.
is somehow not there yet or something.
Yes. Well, life in its form life in its essence, in the form that you've created and fed, like it's like a child. It's like the child is now like a teenager. And well, this isn't a great metaphor. Let me backtrack. Life in the way that you've created, life in the way that you've created it is out there. And it's actually, I can feel it like it's pulling you forward, and there's some like the programming, our own patterns, the limited old paradigm is like keeping you from being pulled forward into the life that you've created, which is magnificent. And so,
Yeah.
we could like take the approach around like, how are you stopping yourself? Like, what are you saying to yourself? Right? Like, what are you at? That could be helpful. Is like, what are you saying in the light of, um, this, like the example you gave of your person saying like how amazing it is and getting like just naturally expressing it. So you could look at, what are you saying to yourself in that moment? Because not letting in the love or not letting yourself feel it in that moment, whatever you're saying and doing in that moment, is the thread of the hair of the pattern, right? Even that is, even if you're saying I should be feeling better right now, is the same pattern that's not letting you feel the whole thing,
Right.
right?
It's
Does that
like
make sense?
judging myself. And
Yeah,
I
that like
think like,
judgment.
yeah, and I can see, and this is another theme I've noticed lately, is like not seeing myself the way that others see me.
Right, exactly.
And even
Yeah,
and even when people will say, "Oh, this is my boss," I deflect that too. I don't want to be somebody's boss, but I am the
yeah.
boss, and that
You are,
like,
yeah.
but I don't want to own that somehow. Like, there's some part of me that like that part of me that wants that, but another part of me that wants to shirk away from what that all means.
Right.
And I can see like one of the things I've noticed in myself as a problematic pattern is how I can be, and I think this is ties into the same thing. So I can again, maybe, I just say whatever on my mind often, which is like a
Mm-hmm.
blessing and a curse, because it's a
Mm-hmm.
blessing in a way because it's very authentic. I'm very transparent. And I think that what happens sometimes is because I just say whatever on my mind, I can hurt people. And I
Uh-huh.
think one of the reasons that I hurt people when I do that is because of who I am to them and my
Mm-hmm.
position.
Your role.
So
Yeah.
my
Right.
role, because I think
Yeah.
of myself as like, oh, I'm just Becky. I can just say whatever. And I think if I just said
Right.
it to you or I said it to somebody else, it might not impact them in the same way. But when I'm their
Right.
boss, or when
Yep.
they see me as like a mogul or a producer or
Right.
the person that hires them or someone at a higher level than them, I don't
Yeah.
see that. I don't see myself that way. And
Yeah.
so, like, an example was that I was there's a director of photography that I work with who I love so much. And I was, his name is Donnell. We were on a project and I told him, Donnell, when you place the mic, the lavalier mic on the talent, make sure this was several months ago, right? This would still be relevant, but because of COVID, make sure you're wearing a face shield and gloves when you place the mic. One, because that's COVID safe. And two, because he does that when the talent is sitting in on camera. So everyone is on Zoom, the client, everyone watching the camera feed. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
goes up without a face shield and touches talent, it's a problem and a red flag,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
he's like, yeah, I got it. No problem. I got you. So then cut to we're on set. He walks up to the talent, puts the mic on without a face shield or gloves. So I'm getting really frustrated. And I also feel very helpless because I'm in a different city and I'm on
Right.
Zoom. And so I'm getting so frustrated because I was also like, oh my God, this is what I was trying to avoid. The client didn't
Right.
even say anything, but was trying to control their perception of what was going on. So then I used to start texting Don out like, D, what the hell, dude? Like I said, like, make sure you're wearing a face shield. He's not responding because I can see him on camera. So I'm like, God, this is like, I can't believe this, man. Something like that. And
Yeah.
then we go on, we start rolling. We're 20 minutes into the interview and I can see he looks at his phone and he's like, oh my God, Becky, I'm so sorry. I'm just seeing this. Like, I'm so sorry. And then I feel really bad because I
Yeah.
realized that in the moment I lashed out at Donnell because it just felt
Right.
like I just wanted to release my frustration. But then I
Right.
hurt him because
Yeah.
he wanted to do a good job. And then I say what I say and it hurts him. And then I feel guilty about that. And I think
Yes.
like that's just one example, but I can see that like I'm able to do those things, make those flippant offhand remarks because I'm not
Yeah.
aware of the way that other people see me.
Yes.
Does that make sense? And it
It
harms
does.
them.
It
And I
does.
think, and I share that because I think that the way that I harm people with my lack of awareness about the way they see me, and I think the way that I am not able to also take in my own success or the way other people see me, I think it's all related to just
Oh
me
my
not being
gosh.
able to see myself in the way that other people see
Wow.
me.
Wow. Well, oh my gosh. Oh, I love you so much. Here's what's coming to me is that you just need to reinvent the role of what it is to be a boss, because you have never fit inside of a mold for anything in your life, which is a blessing. It's not a curse, but the blessing comes with like challenges, right? And so you're just reinventing what it means to be a boss and how you're going to be a boss in your own way that's connected to people, but that there is a hierarchy. You are their supervisor and you're going to be connected and respect them and treat them with respect. And you're going to take accountability when you make mistakes, just like you are talking about right now, that you're going to be connected to people. That's who you're going to be. And so I really see you as just in the moment of reinventing who you are in a way that's a fit for what you've created, you know? And I wanted to go back to two, like I think there's two approaches to looking at this piece that you're talking about. One is like looking at like how you stop yourself. But I think what's even more powerful is being the person that you want to be. Like even like in the moment that you talked about with your person telling you how great that they felt and how much they were inspired by you, is like leaning in and just going, even if you're not feeling it, going into like, oh my gosh, thank you. And I feel so like you would say something like this, like, I feel blessed, or I feel honored to be able to do this with you, and that you're on our team, and to like lean into it and to not feed the membrane that's kind of stopping you. Right. It's like acting as if, right, that we've talked about. But I do think that there's something there, like what you talked about. I mean, the thing around like just texting, and what we could call like reactivity, that clearly I
Yeah,
have as well.
reactivity. Mhm.
Right, reactivity. I mean, that's just something you're just like, okay, I'm not going to text, and I'll talk about it with him in a minute. I mean,
Later.
I think
Exactly.
later, right? I mean, that's like a simple solution. But I get what you're saying, because I think you're reinventing yourself in the role of the person that you are, which is not only like a boss or supervisor, but it's also a highly successful person who's realized like their first, like, because there's more that you have to create for yourself and more that you want to do. But this is a moment to celebrate. So just practicing it. I think that's the piece that I was trying to come back to, is just practicing every day, 5 to 10 minutes, where you just, and it's not even like, I mean, maybe loving yourself, but I would say even letting love in, because you're saying that you stop that with yourself. And I think that there are daily opportunities for you to practice it with people, not even with yourself,
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, in your tenderness of what's happening,
Yeah.
in the telling of the story, like, what's your experience right now in the
Yeah.
tenderness?
Right. Well, it's interesting because I'm feeling things now, right? Like, so I feel emotional, right? I feel like a knot in
Yeah.
my throat, or I have tears in my eyes. I feel like I'm like, okay, well, what is this feeling? I think it's like when you were saying that too, what I see is like it's like growth. I don't know, there's something about
Mhm.
that that's making me feel emotional,
Mhm.
that idea that it's like,
Mhm.
actually I've been working so hard on all of these things on the outside, like on the productions and on the clients and on the sales and on the model and on the teaching, the speaking, and all of this. And it's now requiring in level of internal growth that I didn't bargain
Mm.
for, or that I wasn't
Wow.
really prepared for. It's like, yeah, there's something required for me now in my own growth. That it's not the work that I do out there. It's in who I
Right.
am,
Wow.
and that who I need to be for people, and who I need to be for myself. And like,
Mm.
uh yeah, like an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
What about that is like,
It's like
uh,
emotional.
yeah.
I don't know. It's like, I guess
Huh.
it feels like there's something. Yeah, I guess it's almost like that, like kind of the like attachment to this my small self, or like that I didn't realize that that was going to be part of the bargain. I some like
Uh-huh.
in not in a conscious way, but that I was
Yeah,
just going to
yeah.
work, and I could just like still be the same person inside. But what
Yeah.
I'm realizing is like, no, I have to be a different person, and that's like a death of some side of me. Like, and I think
Yeah.
that this is part of that rising that comes with where I'm at in my career, is like there's a responsibility, right? Like
Yeah.
with great, what is that quote? With
Great
great
power, great
power comes great
responsibility.
responsibility.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
true in a way that I think like there's a
Wow.
loss in that too. Like there's a loss
Uh-huh.
of being able to just be like a casual, just sloppy, whatever person, like that I've been in the past. Like there's a different kind
Right.
of responsibility that's required. And I think that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. And also there's a part of me that like I don't want to be responsible. I just want to be like regular ass Becky who can just do whatever, but I can't. Like I can't be that anymore. And I
Right.
think that for me is like kind of emotional, because it's like, yeah, I'm being called into be someone greater than I
Yeah.
am now. And like
Yeah.
maybe I don't want, part of me doesn't want to. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I have to, because it's like, I don't know, my destiny or whatever.
Well, you have to, because you've already created it out there in front of you. And now again, like, I just go back to like, it's pulling you forward into this next version of yourself. So that's why you have to, because it's out there waiting for you. And there's, I think, like a pull that, like you're saying, that part of you maybe is resisting, that what you've created is pulling you there, including all of it. I think all of you is out there except for that aspect of your heart, like your abilities, your brain, and how you know how to manage things, your ability to create all the things that you created in your organization. I think actually everything is already out there except for this part that you're talking about.
Yeah. That feels
and
right.
I can understand how that's troubling in a way. The other part that came to me, Becky, is your relationship with vulnerability. And when you talk about how you don't want to, the first thought that came to my mind was that the fear of like, because wanting to would take embracing of vulnerability and being open and being not open, being, because you are open, being okay with being vulnerable, with being like exposed or naked, like nothing. Because again, like I don't think you can be. I don't think you can. Sorry, what I meant was I don't think you can be protected in the next version that's calling you forth. You can't be the way that you are right now, right? And not that there's anything wrong with how you are right now, but what's calling you outward, forth, can't be the same version. Thus, your protection, the whatever you've done, has to dissolve in order for you to evolve to the next phase. I'm remembering from the last patterns program that we did, and you told that incredible story about the man that you were working with, and you were super vulnerable and you were open and you were tearful. And then I was like, we touched base afterwards, and I was like, what was going on? And you said something about like, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was the same moment around like having to really, it was really hard for you to just be out there, exposed. And I was surprised because you were so out, and I get it too, but I was surprised because you were so vulnerable. And then the story ended and you were like, uh-oh, so kind of like that feeling. So I think that's it, is like, I think that's a key piece of it, is just like letting it shed so that you can evolve into the next version of your heart's vulnerability and expression.
Yeah.
Which is honestly how I see you. So that's why this is even like a little bit, this whole conversation is a little confusing for me, because I get to experience your heart all the time, and your honesty and your vulnerability all the time. So, and I get it.
Yeah, it's that like the difference between the way you see me and the way I see me.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I just need to catch up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jivandas.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other like thoughts or ideas or anything about this? What do you think about what I said around the vulnerability piece and that?
Yeah,
the like fear of being vulnerable and. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that resonates. I feel like almost it feels to me a little bit like I have been spending years like building a boat that would drive fast, and like I've been building this boat. I put in great like plush seating and great motor and all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden then like I turned the engine on, and now the boat is just like driving away from the dock, and I'm like holding onto the rope at the back of it, and it's just like dragging me through the water, and I'm like, oh, what's happening? And it's like, bitch, you built a boat. And I'm like, wait, like, and I feel like I'm just being dragged behind in the water a little bit. Like I'm not, there's part of me that just like wants to be back on the shore, but then there's a part of me that built a high-speed boat. And there's like, I just, and you, like you said, there's so many parts of me that are already on the boat, but there's this one part of me that's like scared, or like that's, scared, and that just wants to stay on the shore where it's safe.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, it's interesting because I've had that experience before now that I think about it, like with teaching, right? Because we're both incredibly close with Her Holiness Simon, have been teaching in front of large groups of people for decades at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like when I first started doing that, there was, I remember going to Belgium to speak at a program with like 800 people in French. And there was my soul, which was leaping at the opportunity because it was going to take a version of me that was so much bigger than I knew myself to be, to do that. And I think that is the incredible gift of Saima, is that Saima is always seeing me as being someone so much greater than I know myself to be. And through that vision of me, it calls me into being. And still, there's a part of me that just wants to sit on my couch and like smoke weed and watch like just HBO Max and eat popcorn, right? And that that tension exists within me, that like my soul's calling and soul's purpose to serve in this massive way, and the part of me that wants to smoke weed and just like cuddle under the covers and eat cookies or something. That those desires are not the same part of me, obviously. One is like my soul and the other is like my ego, if you want to call it that. But they can still exist in tension sometimes with each other.
God, totally get it. Totally get it.
Do you have that?
Oh, 100%.
What's your tension? What's that tension?
All right, so last week, mine's like different and the same, similar but the same. So last weekend, I was like, this weekend, it's totally open. I've got a couple things. This weekend, I'm going to working on the book. So I go up, I'm like feeling just, I don't know why, but I just felt awful. I just was like, Friday, 5 p.m. hit. I had this huge full week of like spending, I don't know, many, many hours with people, helping them, supporting them, sharing with them. Like that was the whole, like almost every hour of the like 50 or 60 hours that I had that week was like helping people. Serving people. That's the best way to say it. Serving humanity in these different ways, through the private practice, through the wilderness therapy stuff, through personal relationships. Like had this amazing experience with someone that I'm supervising, another therapist, help him see something about himself that he couldn't. Just like beautiful, unlocked, like perfect week, in so many ways. And my last session ends at like 5:00, and I'm just like, like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I just felt sometimes like the week ends and I'm like, awesome. I'm going for a walk or a run or go climbing or something. And I just had no desires, none. So I do what I always do in moments like that, which is like, just kind of nudge myself forward out of the comfort zone or do something that's like good for me. And in this case, on some Friday nights, I drive up into the mountains that are like 45 minutes from where I live, and I sleep in the mountains. And I have this like nice foam pad that I set up in my car, and like roll down the windows and put up these like bug screens, so I can like hear the wilderness and the river, but the bugs can't get. It's like very idyllic for me. And I like went up there and I like read by this creek for a little while, Man's Search for Meaning, this book, beautiful book. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to bed. And like I slept horribly. I just woke up, and then that next morning I do what I always know to do for myself, even if I don't wake up well, like don't wake up like feeling amazing, like the birds are chirping, and that one song in Disney movies where it's do 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 do, like that doesn't happen. And I'm like, all right, well, I know what to do. I like drink some lemon water or some hibiscus tea, and I meditate, and I take a shower or whatever. So I'm like a meditate. I always have these great meditations in the morning. So I'm up there. I mean, really every morning, but up there especially. It's like 10,500 feet. It's this beautiful forest, mountains. It's like totally serene. It's like just incredible. And so I'm like meditating, and I'm like still feeling just kind of junky is the only way that I can describe it, for no reason really. And like an hour goes by and I feel exactly the same. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do like, go into what I know about meditation. It's not about resisting anything. It's not about feeling better even necessarily. It's just about like being, just go into the being. And I'm like, cool, that's all right. I'm not attached to how I feel. I'm a monk, I've been meditating for 20 years. I've meditated for 30,000 hours. Like I can do this, So I go up, like walk around, stretch the legs, do a little stretching, throw a little water on the face. I'm like, oh, I'll just go back in and meditate a little bit longer. I meditate for another 2 hours. And
What?
yeah.
Rewind. Wow, that's like a feature film. Wow.
So I go and sit, and I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine. I was like, it's all good. And I just got into this quiet place, but I couldn't stop feeling junky. I felt exactly maybe 10% better, maybe 10%. But I got out of the car. It was like 11 a.m. And I was like, oh, this sucks. I was like, okay, fine. It sucks. But I was just like, okay, I can't out meditate this, whatever this is. So I tried the strategy of just like, it's fine, but it didn't shift, and it didn't shift the whole weekend. Like I just felt junky the whole weekend. I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel clear around what I wanted to do with the book. I have all these different action items that don't really take a lot, which is like reading a book about writing a book and all of these different like people that I want to learn about. Like, cause the idea right now is I'm writing a book on purpose, as we've talked about. So I'm like learning about what other people say about purpose to help inspire my own unique voice around what purpose is and how to create meaning in our lives, which I actually feel like I have mastered, is how to create meaning and purpose in my life. Because even in the midst, this is a little bit of a side, but even in the midst of this kind of junky feeling, I don't feel like I don't have purpose. It just feel like I don't have access to the expression of that purpose right now. And so I just didn't work on it. I just didn't, because the last time that I wrote a book, I wrote 80,000 words or something, and I didn't love it. It was fine. I liked it, but I'm not going to like put something out there that I don't adore and really can get behind around. Like, this is going to, I want people to read this to really help inspire you, feel better, get a new dimension, like a new view of life and how to enhance your life, things like that. So I just wasn't going to do it. And so it was just a kind of a brutal experience of just making I hate is probably too strong a word. I don't think I hate anything, but I really dislike when I set an expectation for myself and I don't fulfill on it. I really can't stand that about myself, especially when I feel like I should be able to. And I tried all the different things. Like I went swimming in the river. I took a shower. I did all the things that, I just did all the things I know how to do to make myself feel better, to get into a state where I can produce content, for lack of a better term, or share in a way that it would make a difference for people. I just had an insight that I'll share in a moment, but the whole weekend went by and I just kind of had a chill weekend. Like I watched a movie in the afternoon. I went out climbing at night, which I love doing. The next morning I went out and actually had this beautiful experience with the whole Durango climbing community. We go to this certain rock wall and they were all out. It was like so good. I connected with all these people I haven't seen in a while. And we just chatted and bantered and supported each other to climb hard. And it was just awesome. And it was what I needed. It wasn't a weekend to put the nose to the grindstone or put my heart out there in the way that I was envisioning it. And it was great and it's fine. Right. So anyway, the takeaway that I'm realizing now is something that I could have done then. And this is a pitfall that I hit sometimes, is share, don't teach. Right. Make the teaching sharing. And I think I'm realizing through our talk today that when I get into a place of teaching, not always, but sometimes I separate myself from just like you're saying, my own version of this is separate myself from my heart and from my feelings and from vulnerability and what we consider true authenticity, which is sharing in a heartful place. And I'm just getting a whole new access to that right now in this moment. And I can't remember what you asked me, but that was a recent kind of I don't know, definitely not a failure now, but felt like a failure then. And now it just feels like at least I'm harvesting the good from that, that moment, that time.
Yeah. Then. And that's so, wow. There's so much in what you just shared, not taught. And I think it was, that tension inside of us between the way that we maybe want to be in the way that we are, or what there's some expression of how we want to be, like what you were saying about like writing the book, and then also just how you felt in the moment, and like not being able to shift that.
Right.
And yeah, and I think also like sometimes, and I can see this in myself too, like I can be very resistant to the way that I'm feeling, right? And I hear when what you were just talking about too, is like you had this plan and then you felt this way, and then you were like, well, why? I don't want to feel this way because I have this plan that's not working.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, with my plan.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can see the same thing in what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, okay, I have this plan and I'm not feeling the way that I want to feel. I want to feel like, lit up and grateful and humbled and proud and vulnerable. I'm not feeling that way,
Right.
in relationship to my plan. It's like sometimes, best laid plans, the plans that we have laid with our minds don't always match with our hearts.
Exactly. So what do I do in moments like that for myself? We had this really nice thing about what you do. I love the boat. By the way, I was like sorry. I was thinking about the motorboat thing.
Yeah. What about it?
Metaphor. I was just trying to think of a clean way to make the metaphor of the motorboat dragging away and you hanging onto the rope, skipping across the ocean, like how to have that come full circle. Because I'm also thinking for myself, So anyway, I just was curious about like what.
Well, I hear a similar
like that.
Well, I hear a similar thing, and I think it's resistance, right? I mean, at its crux, what you're describing, what I'm describing is resistance. And I mean, another kind of metaphor is like I think about Fred Flintstone. I don't know. I haven't watched the Flintstones in 30 years, but like the Fred Flintstone, I always remember the cars didn't have like a bottom, and then they put their feet down to like drag the brakes. And I feel sometimes when the car is moving and I just put my feet down to try to stop it, I feel like that Fred Flintstone move. And I could see like there was potentially some expression of your soul's purpose that was looking to come out in some way. Well, I don't know. You were also saying that you felt kind of junky. I think that like you were trying to shift the way that you felt. Like in your story, you were not accepting in the way that you felt, even if you maybe said like, oh, I'm accepting the way I feel like, but you weren't, because you kept trying to shift your state in all these different ways.
Yeah.
Right. That you were like, okay, let me take a shower. Let me meditate. Let me meditate again. Let me just read by a creek, or let me, do all the things that you normally know how to do to shift your state. And I think that like, there's that, maybe the thing to do is just not to shift your state or to accept the way that you were feeling.
But what do I or we do when the state doesn't shift and it's super uncomfortable?
I guess be in the uncomfortability. I mean, what is there to?
Well, here's what worked.
Yeah.
I just sort of like, because I know it's kind of like cliche, just like, well, be with the discomfort, but it's like freaking uncomfortable. So what I did was I shifted my plans, and then I really just accepted. I mean, this is what happened, and it was the best thing I knew how to do. Was that I shifted my plans, and then I just worked around sort of the experience a bit, right? And it turned out to be really helpful. Like I went out climbing with all these people when usually my thing would be to like spend more time alone, but I went out with all these people. Actually, I wasn't even planning on being with a lot of people, but I coordinated with like 3 or 4. And then like this whole horde of like 15 folks came up, everybody that I knew that I've known for like 10 years in Durango, and like just are awesome, sweet, cool people. And then I don't know if we talk about the universe so much, but like the universe provided like a lot of comfort for like those 5 or 6 hours when I was hanging out. It was so good. Like being immersed in like the connection of it all.
Yeah. So well, I was going to say, yeah. Well, it's interesting that so maybe that's the thing that can shift us out of those states. It's like what we're doing now, right? We're connecting and talking, and that like more of being by yourself in whatever isn't what's going to shift it. It's through being in conversation, being in community, being with people. And I mean, I can definitely see that tendency in myself when I don't feel good. Like my tendency is to isolate and not to reach out to anyone and not to talk to anyone. And like, when I feel good and expanded, then I want to call people. And when I feel contracted and not good, I just don't want to talk to anybody. So maybe the thing really to do in those moments is to just call somebody or connect or go to the
Yeah.
climbing wall and like do something to get out of
Yeah.
ourselves and our minds, because that's like where all
Right.
the uncomfortability is happening.
Right.
Even if it's
Right.
like, because if you're doing something physical, you're still
Mhm.
in yourself.
Yes. In myself. Yeah. If I would
Exactly.
have gone climbing even with just like one person or by myself, it would have been a really different experience. It could have been fine, but like it just worked out great to have everybody around. And what I'm also realizing for me that helped, I didn't talk about it. Like I wasn't talking about how
Right.
uncomfortable I was. With the folks around Durango, the nature of our relationship is not like, man, I'm feeling really junky and out of alignment. And I meditated for 3 hours yesterday. And, it's just something feels a little bit off, like I probably could have said that and they would have been really polite and nice about it, but it wasn't like the nature of our relationship. It's kind of like hanging out. So there was something too about, I think there's surrender components to this and acceptance components to this, around accepting, like you're saying, like how I am in that moment, then sort of just surrendering to like, you know what, it might not change. F it. I'm just going to go to the climbing wall. And then with that kind of move, that was the best thing I did all weekend. And that was like what
Mm,
actually helped shift my state, is I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to meditate for 4 hours on Sunday
right.
morning, right? And like really take care of myself and drink more juice and go for 2 dips in the cold river. I was sort of like, I'm just going to meditate a little bit and then go out with some friends. And that was magic. Like that was it. So there's
Mm.
probably something to be gleaned from that whole thing, is to just drop expectations, surrender, accept. I think there's a lot of different themes there
Yeah,
that
and
make up that,
connection
like what
and
worked.
connection.
Connection. Yeah, you're totally
And
right.
letting it
Yeah.
go, like that whole thing around
Yeah.
like we're the blue sky and they're the clouds. And I travel a lot and I flew to LA for a day last weekend. And I'm a good flyer. Like I'm not scared of flying, but I often will have the exit row. So I'm sitting over the wing and I'm looking out at the clouds and it's so beautiful. And I could see
Yeah.
other people were looking out the window and on the right side of the plane. And we were above the clouds, so you could see the clouds a little bit below us, very close, like when you feel like you could reach through the window and touch the clouds and the blue
Right.
sky. And then as we
Right.
started to descend into LAX, we would go through the clouds. And as the plane gets into the cloud,
Mm.
it often bumps, right? It's turbulence because the cloud has
Wow.
water vapor and some air pressure thing happens, right? So the starts, bumping. And I could see it. I was thinking about this at the time also. So I was in the window seat, so I could see that we were just going through the cloud. But if I was in the other side of the plane, and I was in the middle of the plane, I couldn't see that. I would think that I could be getting scared because the
Right.
plane is shaking and we're going through turbulence, and I could be like, oh my God, what's happening? But from where I was sitting, I could see, okay, it's just a cloud. Like we're going through the cloud and we're gonna be through the cloud in a second.
Wow.
And we were.
Yes.
And I think that what
Wow, that's
you're
great.
describing in that cloudy moment of your weekend, it's like you were in the cloud, and
Yep.
that by being and just by saying, okay, you know what, I'm in the cloud, this is a cloud right now, I'm just going to let the cloud move through me,
Yeah.
and not hold on to the cloud and try to like shake it out of its, out of your grip, but you're like holding on to it so tight. It's like why won't the cloud go? And it's like, well, because you're holding on to it, like just letting the cloud move, and maybe even like
Right.
turning around and talking to the passenger behind you. And then while you're doing that, the cloud just moves through because you're distracted. I also heard that too. Like you go to the climbing wall and you're not even thinking about the cloud and the junkiness. You're just
No.
talking to people and connected, and all of a sudden the cloud's
Yes.
gone. It's
Yes.
like,
That's
so
totally true. That was great. That was
gotta let
great.
the clouds pass by.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Oh, that's really helpful. Awesome. Mm,
Yeah,
there's serenity. Mm, it's
indeed. Well,
good.
thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was
That
a
was great.
wonderful first edition of our podcast. I think there's some clouds at first, but we got through to the blue sky.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Awesome.
goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye. Um,
Bye.